Hello and welcome to day 1 of 3 for embodying your feminine leadership. If you are joining me live, thank you. If you're listening to the replay, thank you. First and foremost, let us take a moment to truly acknowledge your fucking awesomeness that you are taking time and devoting it to such a potent and powerful topic, feminine leadership. And more importantly, not just any kind of feminine leadership, embodied feminine leadership. So, how I like to start all training calls, all the things is just taking a moment and really helping you get grounded and centered. Because let's face it, especially when I am recording this January 11th, 2021, in the United States, the last 5 days have been insane, heavy, a lot. There is so much happening right now where I live, and I know the world is watching us. And most of the women who follow me, who join trainings like this, you are energetically sensitive. You're empaths, or you've done enough self-development work that you pick up on the energy around you. And so whether or not you realize it, whether or not you've been clearing and cleansing and taking good care of yourself, let us just take a moment. And it doesn't matter when you're listening to this replay. It could be like 2 years down the road. Chances are there's something going on in your life that we need to really ground you into. So go ahead and take a moment here, my loves, and take a deep breath. And release. And on this next inhale, I want you to inhale all the way down to your lower belly. Exhaling, moving if you need to. And on this next inhale, inhale and bring it all the way down to pussy. Exhaling, sounding, opening your jaw. And just continuing to breathe slow and deep. Really tune in to the sensations happening in your body. Tune in to the present moment. Everything that has been happening today, the last week, the last year, the last however long, up until now, it's in the past. You are here right now for you. This next inhale and exhale, just setting the intention that you will be open to receive whatever it is that you need to receive from this training. Continuing to breathe deeply and knowing that whatever needs to be taken care of after you listen to this, tomorrow, next week, next month, will happen because your timing is elegant and perfect. And as you tune in even more to the sensations happening in your body, to the present moment, if you have a specific intention, desire, something that you want to receive from this training or the next 2 trainings after this, just bringing it to the forefront of your mind and knowing that no matter what your intention is, you will get everything that you need to get from this training. And now just doing some really slow hip circles. Feeling the pleasure, the turn on spark inside of your body. Moving that energy up from pussy, from your cervix, from the womb or the energy of your womb. up to your heart, down your legs, up to your throat, to your head, getting yourself to receive from a state of pleasure. And taking a few more deep breaths. Whenever you feel ready, you can go ahead and open your eyes. And we're going to go ahead and dive into some really incredible content this evening. So I just want to kind of frame this whole thing for you. We have 3 days. So today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. Again, I'm recording this Monday, January 11th, 2021. So this is intended to be a series. So if you're listening to one of these trainings, I really encourage you to listen to all of them, because the content that I've put into all 3 of these trainings really goes together. Tonight, we're going to be breaking down a lot of stories, fears, wounding that the majority of us as women have, and how that's blocking you from your embodied feminine leadership. I'm also going to be talking about my inner circle, which is my high-level mastermind for leaders, visionaries, and influencers. And I'm going to be giving some incredible bonuses as I talk about the inner circle. So I'll be talking about it during this training. And today we're really going to be focusing on a lot of things that are blocking what embodied feminine leadership is, and then a lot of the things that are blocking you, because we can't truly step into our feminine leadership, our potent feminine power, if we're not really aware of what's going on under the surface and why. So with that, my loves, let us dive in. Okay. Feminine leadership is a topic, an area that is so near and dear to my heart. And quite frankly, I think the most important thing that women leaders need to be focused on 2021 and moving forward. When I was growing up, and for the beginning part of my adult life, the concept of the feminine, embodiment, pussy, sensuality, sexuality, all of that was so foreign to me. In fact, I spent most of my life not even realizing it was a thing, not knowing that it was important. And I very much fell into the road commonly traveled. College, I went to graduate school for a little bit, hated it, so I dropped out, was in a very good career, was doing all the right things at all the right times. But underneath the surface, I wasn't really happy. At 25, I remember having this sense of like, really, is this it? Like, is this what this is as good as life really gets? Like, oh God. And after my dad passed away, I had no idea how to deal with the grief or the loss that I was experiencing. And it made no sense to me at all, but I was drawn to Mama Gina's School of Womanly Arts, and under the notion that it would help me live a, quote, more pleasurable life. And for someone who was deeply grieving, deeply in pain, the idea of an enjoyable life was like, yeah, sure, I'm in. And I had never done any self-development work. I had gone to therapy on and off, but I never really had heard of The Secret or anything like that, manifesting, nothing. There I was, first day of the class, and all ready to be the perfect student that I had been working my entire life to be. And Regina starts talking about how a woman's power lies within her pussy and her connection to her pussy. I wanted to run out of the room screaming, because all of my Catholic schoolgirl conditioning that had been drilled into me for 10 years was freaking out. But there was something deeper, something stronger that was like, this is exactly where you need to be. And it didn't make sense by any like stretch of the imagination at that point. So I continued in this program and I learned things about myself, about my body, about women, about the feminine that I had never heard of. And not only that, but I felt so confident, so empowered, and it was really helping me move through and process my grief in such a healthy way. And I knew I had to do something with this information. I knew that I needed to help more women unlock this potent power that not only are we not told how to do it, we're flat out discouraged from really tapping into our fullest essence as women. And I watched my life change. I watched the hundreds of women that I was with shift. And I thought, imagine what the world would be like if every single woman was so sure of their power, their magic, their potency. What would that create? And then I saw how differently I was showing up when I was dating, when I was in relationships. I felt more empowered and emboldened to ask for what I wanted, what I needed, to be vulnerable. And I saw men respond to me in a completely different way as well. And I realized even more so that a woman who is in touch with, living from, and loving from her feminine power, it is one of the most magical, healing, transformational things on the planet. So I've spent, the better part of a decade learning, embodying, getting certified in, working with anything and everybody I could find, reading anything and everything, all about the feminine and feminine power. And I think as we experienced last year, where so much of the world came to a stop, where the global pandemic put us in our homes, left us disconnected in a lot of ways, overly connected via social media, I really looked at how the old ways of showing up, working, leading, loving for women, I mean, we've known that they weren't working, but it became so apparent that this was the time to change. And I truly believe that the feminine is meant to be leading right now. Like if you've been in self-development circles, if you've been in transformational spaces, there's this phrase that people say, like, the divine feminine is rising. No, the feminine has already motherfucking risen. It's here. And now it's time for the leaders, the visionaries, the women who want to lead a revolution, who are on a mission, who have a big purpose in the world, to be fully grounded in their embodied feminine leadership. So as we dive into the content tonight, I'm really going to start out with some basics, because I think that one, going back to basics is so important. And two, some of you who are listening in live, listening to the replay, who have signed up for this, are new to me and are new to my content. So when I talk about the feminine, I tend to use the word feminine, essence, fullest expression interchangeably, because for me, they're the same thing. When I talk about the feminine, I mean really your fullest expression of who you are, your truest essence, your truth as a woman. Now, when it comes to humans, we all have masculine energy and feminine energy, right? So the masculine energy is the doing, the producing, the giving, the problem solving, the strategy, the point A to point B. The feminine is your connection to your emotions, to your intuition, your creativity. Here's the big one: your sensuality and your sexual power and sexual energy. For us as women, we have been raised, and for the last 3,500 years, in a patriarchal culture and society, meaning the culture and society at large has placed men and masculine energy as the gold standard, right? Women's bodies, it's like women's health is the deficient male body, and how do we deal with that, right? How people have gotten quote unquote power, success, influence has been work harder, produce more. And so the patriarchy has crumbled. It has crumbled, okay? What we've seen in like from 2016 to now is the last ditch efforts of like the zombie patriarchy still trying to hang on to the power it's gone. And that's why I am so passionate about helping women leaders truly tap into your unique power, your magic, and what actually allows you to be the fullest expression of yourselves. And so when it comes to looking at why it's important to do this work right now for us as women, we have to look back over history, right? I love history. I've always loved history. And especially when I started hearing about the feminine and kind of like rebellious women throughout history, I just became obsessed with the women who went against the grain, who did things that were not appropriate or accepted at the time. And I think that it's really important for us to recognize, yes, we have a long way to go still, but how far we've come in a really short period of time. So again, let's go back about maybe 3,500 years. And this is when a lot of humans move from hunters and gatherers, tribal, into agriculture and into kind of building little towns and little cities, right? Roughly around the same time, a lot of cultures are moving from polytheism to monotheism, right? So polytheism means the worship and the honor of more than one god or goddess. Now, here's the thing with polytheistic cultures. They had male deities and female deities. And all of the deities had different expressions. So if we think of Hinduism, which tends to be a really popular one to look at for goddesses, right? We have Lakshmi, the goddess of abundance and prosperity. We have Kali, the goddess of destruction and fire. We have Shakti, right? So what we see in polytheism is that these different goddesses show different expressions of the whole woman, right? So women had these goddesses to pray to and felt that they themselves were being represented in the divine, right? So we go from polytheism to monotheism, hunter-gatherer to agriculture. Now here is the kicker, okay? Because now we were like settled and people were quote unquote owning land, they had to come up with a way to know who owned what land and, more importantly, how that land was passed down. So that, amongst a bunch of other things, here comes the patriarchy, where the men are like, guess what? We need to know whose kids are ours, so we're going to be in charge now. Not to mention they were terrified of our power. So for 3,500 years, and I would say probably up until, I don't know, the 70s, maybe so like the 80s, the most a woman could truly, truly hope for was a good marriage, like a good match. And the reason why I say that is because women weren't educated for the longest time. We weren't allowed to own property. We weren't allowed to have our own money. Everything that we had or could do in our lives had to come through or from a man. First our father, then our husband. So we had to become, quote unquote, good wives. What was a good wife by that standard? Someone who's appeasing, has no desires, wants, or needs of her own, is just going to take care of her husband and the children, has no dreams, goals, ambitions. I mean, it was not until the 70s here in the United States that women were allowed in all 50 states to have credit cards in their own names. And again, I'm not turning this into like a historical TED talk over here, but I think it's really important for us to understand that our ability to have financial freedom, independence in the workplace, choose whether or not we want to get married, and that not actually impact the life that we lead has only been for the last, I'm going to be generous and say 50 years. In those 50 years, we have come so far. And back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, probably even into the 80s, because we were still, quote unquote, new to the workforce, we had to prove that we were just as good at being men at work, if not better, than the men were. So the masculine traits, masculine energetic traits of production, doing, striving, problem solving became even more of how women were quantifying and qualifying their sense of worth and worthiness. Also, because obviously at that time we're allowed to work and now have our own money and own our own property and blah, 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 we swung into defiance against men. And what I mean by that is we had to be so compliant. We had no voice of our own. We couldn't leave a relationship if it didn't work for us. We couldn't get divorced. We couldn't do it. Like, we didn't have a lot of options. That the pendulum had to swing to the other end, right? It had to be this pushback, sometimes hatred against men. I think now where we are, and part of embodied feminine leadership is alliance with men, because the relationships that all of the women in my community who follow me want to create is that of a mutually empowered partnership. That is also a very fucking new concept. There are rarely any models for it. And again, this underscores the imperative nature of you doing this work right now. If you're listening to this, whether it be live, replay, on my podcast at a later date, it is because you are a woman who has been called to a bigger mission. You are meant to impact and influence others. You do already, right? And you are meant to be one of the women who shows other women what's possible. And that is the point of embodied feminine leadership. Okay. So again, going back to the history lesson, getting us to where we are now. So We spend so long not being educated, not having money, not having freedom, not having independence, blah, 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 blah. Then we start to get it, but the only model is the masculine energetic model. So we, being the brilliant, powerful, hardworking, overachieving women that we are, we overachieve so fucking hard on the masculine model that we burn out, have serious health issues, are depressed, have anxiety, numb out with food, social media, alcohol, you name it. All because we're trying to play a game that we're not meant to be playing. That does not mean that masculine energy is not needed, and that somehow if you step into your embodied feminine leadership, you'll never do or produce or give or whatever. No, again, you're a leader. Having a relationship to your masculine energy, being able to work from your empowered masculine energy is required. But here's what has happened. Our feminine has been so oppressed and suppressed in the culture, in society, in ourselves. So the masculine, everybody tries to overcompensate in the masculine, but it's not in your empowered masculine energy. What ends up coming out is the shadow, right? So for men, what comes out is anger, violence, emotional shutdown, lack of vulnerability. For us as women, our disempowered shadow masculine is getting all of our sense of worth from what we do, is overworking to the point of burnout and exhaustion and health issues, is striving just for the sense of striving and not being connected to our desires, to a vision, to anything like that. And again, all of this is just because we've had thousands of years of that conditioning. So for most people, most women, how you run your business, show up at work, how you show up in your relationship isn't usually questioned, because you're just going off of what you've seen, what you've been told, or trying to be the exact opposite of what you've been seen or been told, right? And it's not really coming from a space of truth for you. So we've tried to lead from our disempowered masculine energy, right? In this hierarchical construct that if I have power, that means other people don't have power. If I'm leading, I'm the guru. But what that brings up, especially for women in my community, you're good-hearted. You want to lead because you want to do good in the world. So then you hold yourself to unreasonable standards of perfection and not being human, because you don't want to hurt others. But in this hierarchy of okay, I'm leading, so I'm the guru, it's I have to show up perfectly. I have to show up in this way. I have to do things that I think I should do in order to gain respect or whatever it is. We've never been in a space in all of history where we have had the freedom, the resources, the independence, the education that we have right now as women. And you who are listening, again, I know you're listening because you feel called to do something really big, really important with your life. And that, again, gets to look like however that looks for you. It could be leading a massive company. It could be having a small community of people that you talk to. It could maybe be taking up a leadership position in someone else's company or in something else. But you want to make an impact in this world. And you're obviously here because the ways in which we've been taught to do that, they don't work, they no longer apply. But we haven't really seen what is the framework and the roadmap moving forward. So again, going back to this idea that for most of history, all a woman could really want is a good marriage. And it has led us to disconnect from and disown our desires, our vision, suppress our emotions and our needs, be ashamed of our bodies and disgusted by them. It has led us to disown wholeheartedly our sexual power and energy. It has caused us to see other women as competition and as potential threats. It has cost us the ability to fully show up in a relationship, to feel fully seen, fully heard, fully adored, fully cherished. It's also cost our partners the exact same things. One of the secrets that nobody tells you about the patriarchy is men aren't happy in it. Yes, we can sit here and say that like white men in power are, but they're not. They're typically more depressed than anybody else. They're out there like seeking sexual gratification because they're so repressed and shut off and shut down from themselves in other ways, right? They're so busy trying to yield their power over others. They feel so inferior. And so I think that we've all been fed this lie that the patriarchy somehow benefits everyone. It doesn't. It benefits no one. So anyways, all we could expect to be is a good wife. So what do you think was born? The good girl mentality. If you're good and you're sweet and you're appeasing to everyone and just appealing enough, and luckily now it's like you have someone's needs and desires, but not too much, right? Maybe you have some outspoken beliefs, but not too much. Constantly walking the tightrope of being terrified that you're too much and afraid that you're not enough all at once. Being shut down in your body. And again, because we've been told, taught, and sometimes even witnessed women being the enemy, women being the competition, we suffer alone. We suffer in silence. And we think that the things that we experience, the fears, the shutdown, the numbness, the disconnection, is because of who personally you are versus realizing that it is a collective experience amongst women. I remember listening to Amy Schumer's stand-up. This had to have been, it was shortly after the Me Too movement. And she said, whatever it is, I guess Gen X, right? The younger generation that was in the workplace at the time that kind of really started the Me Too movement in a lot of ways. She's like, they come into the workplace and they're getting sexually harassed and hit on, and they're like, this isn't okay. And they come to all of us, like us millennials and older women. They're like, are you guys getting harassed? And we're like, yeah. They're like, we should do something about it. We're like, oh, yeah, we should, right? But when we're so focused on how we're wrong, how we're broken, how we're not enough, how we're too much, how we need to be working more, producing more, we're so focused on how we think we may be inherently flawed that we aren't available to truly be in our power. So embodied feminine leadership, one of the first things, and again, this is why I gave you that nice little history lesson, is dismantling and deconditioning the patriarchal stories, beliefs, and fears that are happening for us consciously, subconsciously, and are locked within our nervous system that are holding you back in overt and covert ways from leading, impacting, influencing, loving, receiving, experiencing all of your heart's desires. I truly believe that every single one of your desires was given to you for a reason, for you to walk it out in this life. And again, if you're listening to this, I know that you have a huge fucking vision for your life. You are meant to walk it out and be the example for other women. One of the biggest things that the patriarchy does is it silences us into being afraid that if I am my full self, I will not be okay. That to me, and I have been saying this for years, is the deepest fear and wound of the feminine. If I am my full self, I will not be okay. Subscript, I will not be safe. That's what it always comes back to. You're afraid to put yourself out there online. You're afraid to make more money. You're afraid of your success. You're afraid of getting the love you want. You're afraid of this. You're afraid of that. Why? Because if you're your full self, they might not like me. They might not accept me. They might judge me. They might leave me. I might get hurt. And under all of it, in your nervous system, is the fear that I will be killed for being my full self. And that fear is valid given the fact for 3,500 years, women were left, hurt, tortured, killed for being their full selves. And throughout history, that has looked different, right? It might have been if a woman learned how to read, she was killed or somehow sent away, ostracized. If a woman expressed her sexual desires, if a woman used her healing power, right? Like, hello, witch trials. And again, going back to how we've been taught to believe that other women are the enemy, oftentimes those turning the witches in were other women because it was an act of survival. If I point my finger at them, I won't be killed. And so that fear of not being able to be your full self is one of the first things that you have to eradicate from your belief systems, from your subconscious, and from your nervous system in order to fully step into your embodied feminine leadership. When we look at, again, how we got to where we are, as I said, we went from polytheism to monotheism. And I said this recently on a guest training that I was on. And to me, I think it just encapsulates so much of it. How the patriarchy really got us at the beginning was they took the feminine out of the divine. So they were like, hey, yeah, there's a higher power, but guess what, ladies? Not you. Doesn't look like you. Not even close. And then they took the divine out of the body. It was, if you want to access love, consciousness, something greater than yourself, you have to do it through someone else, typically a man, in power in the church. And so what that did is it instantly put us in a place where we saw ourselves as flawed, as not enough, as not worthy. Because again, for especially those thousands of years, like so much was really built upon and driven by religion. And so it's like, okay, so we're living this life following this religion, which has basically told us that men are somehow superior. All I am is a dirty, shameful temptress. And the only way that I can experience any kind of quote unquote salvation or love or goodness is if I go to this man and pay him, confess to him, listen to him, whatever. So they took the feminine out of the divine and they took the divine out of the body. So along with really beginning to address the deep patriarchal wounding in the feminine, we also have to really begin to rebuild our spiritual connection. And more importantly, finding the spiritual connection within our bodies. I love all of you heart-centered spiritual entrepreneurs out there. You've done a lot of great stuff. And now it's time to be pussy-centered. It's about bringing that sense of spirituality, reverence, connection into your feminine body. Tomorrow, I'm really going into depth around sensuality and our sexual power. But again, today I really wanted to tee up like why we are here. And, I work with a lot of women, and whether it be privately or in my programs, and it's kind of like, there can sometimes be this feeling of like, why do I have to be the one to do this work? Like really, like, good, so hard, so painful, right? And I mean, I've been guilty of it too. It's like, really, can't somebody else do this and then just like make it easier for me? Why do I have to be at the forefront? And again, I think it's really important for us to realize that it's an honor and a privilege that we get to do this work, and be so grateful to the women who have come before us, who really have paved the way. And because one of the deepest and most potent fears for the feminine is that I can't be my full self and still be okay, what we need is more and more and more and more women, leaders, being in your embodied feminine leadership and showing other women you in fact are your full self, and you in fact are very safe and loved and okay. That is the permission slip that you give other women. And that's why I opened and created the Inner Circle, which is my embodied feminine leadership program, because I think that what is needed now more than ever is women who are leading, influencing, hosting, leading a revolution, however you define it for yourselves. You doing this work in a community of other women doing this work is the support that you have been seeking in other ways and haven't been able to find, and is the foundation that will allow you to truly create everything that you want in your life. Because again, the feminine is the leader. The feminine is the one with the vision and the desires. And so living in your feminine energy and pleasure and turn on, being your fullest expression of yourself, it's a discipline, it's a lifestyle, and it truly does require you being in a community. Because even though, as I said at the beginning, the patriarchy is like dead and the zombie of the patriarchy is like still trying to hang on, still most of the world and most of life is not curated to really support women being in their full power, right? Like we are still very much living in a rape culture and a Madonna whore paradigm society where it's like women are overly sexualized, but then told not to be too slutty. Like we're it's like all this body positivity and then we're shoved diet pills down our throat. Like there's still so much out there that in an instant can take you out of your power, shut you down. And again, you're working with thousands of years of conditioning that's like, guess what? Don't be your full self or else you won't be safe. So being in a community allows you to experience being fully seen, fully heard, taking up space, being witnessed by the feminine. And that cannot be replaced by anything else. And again, I created the inner circle because if you've been following me for a while, then you know, like, I'm so passionate about sensuality and feminine energy and sexuality. And I have tons of programs that are very sex focused and more sex forward. And sexuality and sexual energy and, sensuality and pleasure is very much in the inner circle. But it's more about you tapping into your unique essence of leadership from the basis of your feminine. And again, it really is because I think that this is the only way forward at this point. And the more women who are fully connected to their truth, to their power, to their bodies, who are emotionally mature, the better this world will be. And the more that I can help give leaders the tools, the practices, the content, the community to cultivate that for themselves, the ripple effect is unlike anything else. And so the inner circle is a mix of private coaching and small group mastermind. There's only 10 spots total in the program right now. I have content modules, we have practices, meditations, we have 2 retreats, the first one being virtual, the second one, goddess willing, will be in person. Obviously, that depends on global travel abilities. Because I love going deep with women one-on-one, right? Like you getting curated and customized coaching to really see yourself, feel, to be seen, to work through like the deep, shadowy shit that is holding you back. I love it. And we need community. The feminine needs community. And especially for you leaders, you need to be with other women who are making an impact, who are having influence in the ways that they want to have influence, who are leading the movements that they want to lead, who are making the fucking money that they want to make. Like, we're going to be talking about money and abundance, and that will come, and you will make more money from being in this program. Not because I'm going to sit here and be like, here's your 5 money mantras. It's because you're going to be the fullest expression of yourself, unapologetic, truly embodying who you are. And that is the most motherfucking magnetizing thing on the planet. It's about leading your relationship from your feminine, cultivating and curating a romantic partnership that is built on mutually empowered individuals, right? And realizing that one of the biggest things that we've been missing in love is our empowered feminine. That is actually the leader inside of relationships. We're going to be doing some really deep shadow work, but here's the thing with all of the deep work that I do. It is all steeped in turn on and sexiness. So bringing the sexy into the shadow. You can't be your fullest expression of yourself if you don't accept all of you. And I also want you to know that if you decide to join the inner circle, or if you're in my community, whenever I do host, curate content that is deep and profound and transformative, I want you to know that you are already whole. You are already enough. You are already powerful. This is not about me trying to load you up with so much fear that somehow you're broken and you don't have what you want right now because you're so broken or not healed enough. And if you do this program, it's the magic pill, the magic bullet, and guess what? You'll be healed enough and finally get what you want. The reality is you're already whole. And this is the invitation for you to do the work on dismantling and deconditioning the patriarchal bullshit that's holding you back, to really amp up, connect to your sensuality, your sexual power, to truly embody your fullest expression, to curate and cultivate the romantic partnership that you desire, to lead in a way that feels authentic and unapologetic to you, and to give you a community where you feel seen, heard, and supported. So, the inner circle, our first module actually drops tomorrow, but doors are open for a little bit. So, as part of this 3-part experience, I decided to do something really fun for you. So, you have at least through this week, probably next week, to join the inner circle. If you join in the next 24 hours, I'm giving you some incredible bonuses. You get an additional half-day intensive. So you'll get an additional 2.5-hour intensive with me, which that alone is one of the most transformative experiences clients experience, because having 2.5 hours devoted to you diving into mindset blocks and energy blocks and fears and stories that are holding you back. And again, because I always heal from a space of pleasure, tapping you into this higher vision, more fully expressed version of you, so powerful. So you get an additional half-day intensive. You get 6 months of unlimited voice and text support from me. So for the entire program, the Inner Circle is 6 months long. You get me on Voxer. This is something that I only give strictly private clients. You get that. And the third bonus that you will receive is, assuming we do the second retreat in person, I will take care of your accommodations for the retreat. And if for some reason we can't travel, you will get something equivalent to it. Don't worry, we will figure that out. Now, here's the thing. From now until tomorrow at 5 p.m., you get those 3 bonuses. Tomorrow at 5 p.m., when part 2 starts, one of those bonuses, and I'm not telling you which one because we're going to make it fun and seductive. One of those bonuses is going to go away. So if you're interested in the inner circle, I'm going to, let me drop the link right now in the comments if you're live. And if you are listening to the replay or listening on the podcast, then the link to read about the inner circle is somewhere in the email or in the show notes. If you want to talk to me about whether or not you think the inner circle would be a good fit for you, you can send me a private message on Facebook, on Instagram, shoot me an email. I have time. We can chat on the phone if you want. We can just send messages back and forth. The thing with the inner circle, because it is a really small group, it really is for the woman who knows that this is what she wants. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have fear, you don't have reservations, you don't have resistance, but you know that you want to be held in a container that is all about embodied feminine leadership. You know that this is your next edge, the feminine, sensuality, sexuality, and really bringing all of that into your leadership in life, in love, in your business. Customized payment plans are available. There are 7 spots left at the moment. I may open up 1 or 2 more, depending. But if you're going to join the inner circle, I will say the next 24 hours are the best time to join because you're getting more bonuses than anything else. Because, it was so funny when I decided to do this training, I had the opt-in set up and all the things. And then this morning I realized, why am I trying to limit this to people who signed up? They may or may not have seen this. I'm going to put this on the podcast. I'm going to put this on my YouTube channel. And to me, that is very much me living this message of embodied feminine leadership. I so believe in this that it's how does this get to be easier? How does this get to be more pleasurable? And when I thought about how can I really serve the women who feel called to be in this container with me, it became really clear, give you more support, one-on-one, voice and text access to me. And let's be real, the second retreat, again, goddess willing, will be in person, and we're all gonna fucking need it by then. I mean, who doesn't want to be in person with other people right now, right? And our first retreat is one day. It will be virtual. And it's going to be this beautiful mix of content and hot seat coaching and sisterhood and ritual. So when I talk about the feminine being taken out of the divine and the divine being taken out of the body, one way that we begin to cultivate that back is through feminine spiritual practices. So rituals, pussy practices, sisterhood circles. I have tons of things that are going to help you cultivate more of a sense of feminine spiritual connection. And so, if I'm being honest with you, ladies, which I always am, I would say for the last probably 5 years, as long as I've had my business, so much of what I've seen out there around the feminine has quite frankly been synonymous with spiritual or intuitive. So whenever I see the feminine, it's goddess cards, flower crown, maybe some sage. All of those things are great. I got all of those things, minus a flower crown. I got a real crown, as we can see. You've probably seen it in my photos because duh. That is the tip of the iceberg. And I think it has made it a little bit more palatable for people than coming out with it's actually about being in your motherfucking body and owning your sensuality and your sexual power. We're shifting still into that being what a lot of people are talking about. And I see it more and more and more, which is amazing. And the spiritual element of the feminine is still important. And unfortunately, that has been the only thing that's been talked about. So in the inner circle, there is spirituality woven in. And I will tell you, in full transparency, I was raised Catholic, went to Catholic school for 10 years, then basically was I want nothing to do with religion or the church. After my dad died, I was searching for something. I wanted to believe in something to make that easier. And also that was at which I came into the world and work of pussy, which again, opened me up spiritually. Now I've done tons of research and reading on goddesses, on rituals, on all this stuff. And I've had my own spiritual journey. So inside the inner circle, it's not a certain religious denomination, a certain very precise spiritual practice. Again, it's about leading you back to your truth, back to your spiritual connection, whatever that looks like. And one thing I want to make really clear, everything that I do, but really in the inner circle, it is a safe, non-judgmental space. You will be fully safe to explore your edges, your boundaries, to be your full self. And you will not receive any judgment from me. I have heard it all. I've seen it all. I've experienced, not all, but a lot. And the feminine is in acceptance of it all. It doesn't judge, is this right or wrong, black or white? That's the patriarchy. It's not even the masculine, it's the patriarchy. So when I talk about, yes, there is a spiritual element to the inner circle, it's about bringing in the divine feminine, bringing in feminine elements of like cycles, honoring cycles, whether it be the moon cycle, the season cycle, your feminine menstrual cycle, coming back to elements of the feminine that were snuffed out. Rituals were snuffed out, right? Like tapping into the energy of the moon or the earth or plants or cards or whatever. Again, it's not about one of those specific things. I will bring a mix and weave in ones that feel authentic to me. But again, because it's a small group mastermind, you'll get to bring in all your own stuff too. And what we will create will be so potent, so magical, which is also why I'm keeping the program really small, because I want you to feel so seen, so heard, so supported. And for my loves who tend to hide out in the back and not really show up and like sign up for programs because you think that that's what you should do or you really want to do, and then you get afraid and then you don't show up and blah, blah, blah. I'll be watching you. There's no hiding in the best way. What I mean by that is you will be held in this program. It will be safe. You will not be judged. And I will provide you with the tools and the practices and the content for you to step so fully into your embodied feminine leadership in all areas of your life, so that you are the most unapologetic, authentic, full expression of yourself. And that you are able to carry out your mission, your purpose, your revolution in this world that is meant to change the world, that is meant to empower and to inspire. Okay, so with that, I'm going to open it up, see if you guys have any questions. Just know, again, that this is recorded. This is going on the podcast. This will be available. So if you don't feel comfortable asking your question, knowing that, you can shoot it to me privately after this or go into the Magnetic Woman Soiree, the Facebook group. It's a closed group, so you can ask the question there. And if you want to ask me a question here live, you can unmute yourself or type it in the comments, and I'll just wait a minute, take a sip of my wine and see what we got. I'll put my glasses on so I can see. Oh, Leslie, what you got? Beautifully done. Oh, thank you, Leslie. Thank you so much for being here. It made me so happy to see your beautiful face. Any other questions, comments? I'd love to also know, what was your biggest takeaway? What did you really get from this? Is there one statement or concept that really stuck out to you? It's really helpful for me. Again, as I said, I have been, in this world, in this work for almost a decade now. And so this is what I live, breathe, eat, sleep, watch, read, drink, you name it. And it's really helpful for me to know what's really resonating with you and why. So any comments, any things that you're really taking away, I'd love to know. And like I said, you can always shoot me a message, Instagram, Facebook. We'll be back tomorrow with part 2, and part 3 is the day after. I agree. The zombie patriarchy is in its last grasp, since 2016. Not sure if this is wildly recognized thing. Great to hear you talk about it. Takeaway, biggest wounding, fear of not being self. Yeah. I mean, I think the pushback that happened after Me Too was like the patriarchy being like, ah, shit, we're losing it. We've lost it. Oh God, grass, hold on. How can we make them submit? Oh no. And, you know, I think things in recent days in the United States were really like the zombie on its last leg, like trying to grasp on to where we've already gone. You know, and as much as I talk about the patriarchy, I also, if you've listened this long, thank you, because I know I've been chatting for a while here. To me, being anti-patriarchy, not just to me, I mean, I think being anti-patriarchy does not mean being anti-man, period. Being anti-misogyny also does not mean being anti-man. And I'm going to talk about this in day 3, and we really go in depth in the inner circle in terms of cultivating empowered relationships. Most of my clients are heterosexual women, so are women who identify as women and who are in relationship with men who identify as men. Everything I teach about relationships, though, it doesn't matter. It applies to same-sex relationships, open relationship, whatever kind of relationship you want to have. It really is like foundational communication tools and practices to help you cultivate intimacy. So that does matter. And if you are a woman in a same-sex relationship, you're going to come in contact with men. You're going to have a man in your life somewhere that you're going to have some kind of connection or relationship to, whether it be a brother or a father or a coworker or a brother-in-law. And so I think really understanding men empowers us so much more to be in our power, and understanding that the patriarchy has wounded and fucked over men very deeply as well, differently than it has fucked us over and hurt us, but it has still very deeply hurt men. And so again, I think we had to be in compliance with the patriarchy and men for so long. And then when it was like, wait, no, we're demanding rights, we're demanding our own financial freedom, we're demanding education, we're demanding the ability to divorce, the ability to, you know, it wasn't until 1990 that all 50 United States outlawed marital rape, right? Like, then we went into defiance in a lot of way, where it was like, we had so much, rightly so, anger, resentment, fucking rage towards men. And a lot of women still have it. We have to clear that shit out. And when you move through that anger, that rage, that resentment, that is the only way that you can be truly in your power. It's not about moving through it to then be in compliance again and then to be like surrendered and docile, blah, blah, blah. No, it's moving through it. So you set your motherfucking boundaries. And knowing that sometimes, oftentimes, most of the time, shit that you're dealing with men, whether it be a partner or a coworker or whatever, is their unconscious patriarchal conditioning as well. And so I know that the women in the inner circle, but more importantly inside of my community, what you want is a mutually empowered partnership. And that requires us to be in alliance and, quite frankly, to take our rightful place as the leader in the relationship. And again, we can sit here and be like, but why do we have to be the leader? And it's like, well, guess what? We've been trying to give men the power to lead the relationships for 3,500 years. And guess what? They've sucked at it the whole time because they don't know what the fuck they're doing, ladies. They're not meant to lead. All they want is for us to lead. All they want is for us to know exactly what we want and to tell them so that they can give it to us. That is truly what men want. I could go on for hours and hours, but guess what? That's what tomorrow's for. Thank you so much for this educational lesson. You are so welcome. Tomorrow will be less history and more tools and other things. But again, it's really important that we understand why, I hear this from women all the time. It's like, I want to be visible online, or I want to do this thing, or I want to ask for a raise, or say this thing in my relationship, or even admit to myself that I want the things that I want. And you stop and you freeze and you shut down, or you do like the automatic yes. Someone's like, hey, will you? You're like, yes. I don't even know what it is. You're like, why did I do that? I'm exhausted. I'm so tired. Why am I constantly giving to other people? And again, especially if you do any kind of self-development, personal growth, can be really easy to jump on the train of, I'm so wounded, I'm so broken, I have to keep doing all this healing work in order to finally be healed. And when we realize that, one, you're already whole, you're already enough, period. And two, a lot of what is causing freeze and shutdown is more unconscious beliefs and conditioning, and even in your nervous system. That's why tomorrow, when we talk about sensuality and sexual energy, and why I say embodied feminine leadership, you can't lead from your feminine in your head. The feminine is not in the head, it is in your body. But you can't be in your body if your nervous system is full of trauma, pain, old stories, and patriarchal conditioning. Because what happens? You get into your body, you feel that power, you feel that turn on, and everything under the surface is nope, not safe, not okay. You're being your full self. Get the fuck out. So you find yourself wrong, you shame, you blame, you self-sabotage, you shut down, you numb out. And then you're like, oh God, I need another mindset class that's going to teach me mantras so that I can manifest. No. You need practices and tools to help you clear out your nervous system. There's a backlog of thousands of years of bullshit in there. And again, because I'm a giant nerd, it has been proven by epigeneticists that trauma is passed down at least for 4 generations in your cells. Now, there has never been a generation that hasn't experienced trauma before us. So imagine the gifts that have been given to you in your cells and in your nervous system. And again, this isn't to create like a doomsday scenario of like, oh my God, how the fuck am I going to get over this? It's about helping you realize so much of what is keeping you from what you want isn't even yours, isn't even on the surface. Is just bullshit baggage that you've been given, you've been carrying around without even realizing it. And again, the reason why I created the inner circle is because for me, the best way for me to do my work is to give the leaders this information so the ripple effect is so much bigger. And peeling back the layers and deconditioning yourself from the patriarchy, it is deep. It can be intense, which is also why there's the private coaching element, which is also why the group is small, because I'm committed to giving you the best, most juicy, supportive container without sacrificing myself, my needs, my boundaries. As much as you will learn from the content, from the practices, from the tools, I also hope that you will learn from how I run my business, which does not mean this is the one true path, but hopefully it will allow you to see, oh, wait, it gets to be easy, it gets to be fun, it gets to be pleasurable. What does that look like for me? And then you do that, and you do whatever you do in the world, and you show other women it gets to be easy, it gets to be fun, it gets to be pleasurable. I get to be in my body, I get to be in my power, in my expression. And then those other women are like, great, what does that look like for me? And so on and so on and so on. Okay, my loves, I've taken enough of your evening right now. Thank you so much for being here. If you're interested in the inner circle, you can click on the link. You can shoot me a message. Again, the next 24 hours are the best time to join because you get all the best bonuses. And you will have time to join the inner circle after this week. It probably will only be through next week, but if you want to make sure that you get all the notifications, join the Magnetic Woman Soiree, my free Facebook group, or get on my email list. Those tend to be the two places where I communicate the most with you. So with that, my loves, I will see you tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Zoom. There will be a new link. You'll get access to that. And have a good, sexy evening.